I think that really what is on offer is cultural transformation. But who's in the market for that? Internal branding as a supporter of more effective external branding. I think that's a purchasable product.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Mike Woodrow, who's the CEO of Orange Digital. Mike, it's good to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks, Eric.
I wanted to dive right in and kind of ask you to tell us a little bit about Orange Digital and sort of your competitive differentiator in the marketplace.
Sure. As an agency, we're less than 10 years old. We certainly entered this space as a design agency, but I think if there was a distinctive about us then, it remains now, and that is that we were a design agency driven by quite a powerful and unique internal culture. Perhaps, surely every culture is unique, but unique in the diligence and in the intentionality that the founders applied to distilling it, to capturing it, to articulating it, and then eventually to living it. And so 3 years ago as an organisation, we wrote our own book, and then we applied the values that we aspired to ourselves, and that was initially quite uncomfortable, because as soon as you actually capture, this is who we are, this is how we roll, and we did it really, and this is a beautiful thing, I just use the royal we, that organisation has done it very intentionally, and it has shaped how they engage and their level of performance in a way that the market notices that's different. And so I've stepped into this space. I really entered the space through a executive coaching team performance as a service provider, and segued into CEO. And I think even that journey speaks about, there's all sorts of people that you could choose for a CEO, a strategist, someone with incredibly strong financial performance background. Really what the founders chose was someone who came into the space thinking about the performance of their people. And I think that is the experience of our customers and partners, that the distinctiveness is in our culture, and that culture actually drives performance.
Coming as you did as an outsider to Orange Digital, from a business perspective, what intrigued you? What got you excited about that opportunity?
And I think I really came to the business I think of myself as a digital dinosaur, and so I entered the online space in '99 and entered in partnership with another professional, and we established an online store which then grew to be of significant standing in Australia and very successful globally. And from '99 to this year, we ran that business and we scaled it, and then early this year we sold it. It was during that process that I stepped out of online marketing and into human performance. So I took about a 4-year sabbatical out of the business, and I could see the correlation between the performance of people and the performance of the business model. So I was actually doing some pro bono work and came across Orange Digital and saw a group of real digital natives, and so much about the energy, excitement that was present there, but also the opportunity. And the opportunity through two things. One is transformative, so cultural transformation and disruptive innovation. And what I noticed was here was a business, and I'd worked with many business who had desired to be culturally healthy and progressively innovative. And despite an incredible amount of finance and resource being thrown at those two initiatives, really quite mediocre results. And so what I noticed in this space was at quite a small scale, so a team of 30, so all on one side. And so there are some things there which help culture and innovation to actually thrive. You're not trying to do it across multiple offices or across multiple countries. But surely there was a pilot model here that says, here is a process through which culture can actually be an accelerant of progress, and innovation. We've got an 108 module innovation process. So there's some real intentionality in those two areas, and I thought, I need to hang out here.
Wow. I think websites that retain that human element are probably the most successful ultimately. They provide connection, they provide some type of emotion, that resonates. How, in this proliferation of technologies and marketing tools, how do you ensure that, the customer, the human, stays at the center of that digital experience?
Most companies and organizations are driven very strongly by performance. They're looking for metrics, they're looking for outcomes, and they can see a fairly iterative, transactional way to get from here to here. I want a website, I know what that looks like, I know how long it should take, and that it will be a fairly transactional process. And that whole process is going to inevitably drive to a particular outcome. And that outcome could be efficient, but I'm not suggesting that it'll necessarily be effective. And so you sort of think, we're just going to change the flavour. We're just going to make sure that the sausage machine is set on human flavour. And guess what? The river flows from the source. And so it's our tenet and premise that unless there's purity at the source, and that purity surely has to be around something, a process where we've dug down through the metrics into the essence, and then that if we get it pure there, we can take it pure right to the end. Interestingly, what we notice is that we then have two data points of clarity. Our normal process would be to get the whole C-suite in to a room, and we are almost insistent on that. Mm-hmm. So you say, website, this is just a marketing and marketing assistant process. So we don't. We actually get the full C-suite in and say, if this is going to be a tool, if this is going to be an artifact of your organisation, which is perhaps the most powerful and all-pervasive artifact, then let's get it right. So they reluctantly come into the room, and we go through a process which produces clarity. We then reflect that back to them, and they often sit back in their seats and say, yes, that's what we dreamed of when we started this organisation. That's what the founders spoke about. There are still echoes of what you've just captured that echo around our organisation, but it's rarely said as clearly as that. If we can then express that digitally, then we've got two data points of clarity. And what we find is that then the organisation will often align itself around those 2 points. We also notice that alignment tends to fade. And so I think our journey as an organisation is then to ask a question beyond that, to say, beyond creating an external facade, which we're proud of, which we can align to, what other internal processes or technologies could we use to create a full depth of alignment, which would then seep out in every part of our marketing, as well as the customer experience.
So it sounds like you're almost blending, kind of the external digital experience facet with almost like a change management,
absolutely,
aspect to your engagements.
And the challenging thing from a business model point of view is that while a company may be very aware of a need for some kind of tool or platform, and while perhaps the highest parts of that organisation might aspire to a higher level of cultural effectiveness, or it's not something that's on their shopping list. And so, and yet during the experience, they quite often say, as they visit us in our environment, they say, that's what we want. As we share with them our cultural tenets, we think, what they'll often say is, we want a book like that. But what they don't want is the book like that. What they want is an experience where they've actually been able to clarify, beautify, and then amplify who they truly are. Perhaps the easiest way that we can market that is to combine what we'd call external branding and internal branding, because that's a commodity that, or at least people, if you say, would you like to come on and change? I think that really what is on offer is cultural transformation. But who's in the market for that? Internal branding as a supporter of more effective external branding, I think that's a purchasable product. And what we see as the opportunity in internal branding is actually, whether you call it cultural alignment or principles alignment. And so I think what that does is creates an environment where innovation thrives. It produces clarity in our messaging. And so if you say, now we've got clarity and an innovation-ready environment, that's powerful.
You mentioned earlier that brands, sometimes are myopically focused on, metrics, ROI and revenue and whatever the case may be with their websites. And, sometimes the silver bullet for all that is to, do more personalization. How do you balance, a sort of respectful approach to personalization versus, borderline being creepy?
I have been thinking about the topic of the evolution of digital marketing. I was thinking that, when you're living in 2018, it's easy to lose sight of the century that we're living in and the journey that we're on in this area of digital marketing. But I mean, we're really early in this journey, in the evolutionary process. And what we know is that, I was thinking back to the introduction of the motor car and the mass production, and some of the old footage of Model T Fords, on the streets, and there were horses and pedestrians, and there's cars, and there's no road rules, and you think about how a technology was introduced into a landscape that was really not ready for it, and there were casualties of that. People got run over, and it was a really from a user experience point of view, it was noisy and smoky, and it was not at all elegant. And then as time went, and as the evolution of the motor vehicle went on, people began to not want to put up with those things, and so the whole landscape changed. And what I'm thinking in the digital space is that we're very early in this journey, and there are some casualties that are associated with the intrusion of digital marketing into our world. And so some of those casualties are privacy and even respect. When I hear user experience, when I hear customer experience, I think I'm a person. I want a personal experience. So even the terminology we're using is pretty, it feels very utility. So all I'm wondering is what might consumers, what might people of the future be expecting in terms of their experience, and so retargeting and almost like digital stalking, it might be part of our current landscape as some of the early uncomfortable experiences of the automobile. I'm thinking that really successful future digital marketers will be cognizant that people are the experiences of their digital products, and they should be respected. And that what's okay now in the stage of evolution will not always be okay. And to say, it's working, it's getting me the ROI that I want, that could be quite a short-sighted that could be quite a short-sighted strategy.
That was Mike Woodrow, the CEO of Orange Digital.